Thank you. And Jason Mill. Thank you for everything you've been doing down there as well. I know that I've mentioned Paul a lot, but you're another one of the names.
Cheers. One of many. So kia ora to Mayor Dalzell and other councillors. Just a quick introduction to who I am. I've met most of you, but there's a few faces I haven't met before. My name's Jason Mill. I've been an architect and working in the construction industry in the city for about 30 years.
So page 217, everyone, sorry.
20 years of that I've been the director of my own architecture company, and for the last 12 years we've been running a 3D startup that's got very involved since the earthquake. With clients such as Google, Trimble, Sarah and City Council. Also since the earthquake I've got quite involved in the background of many groups, as Leanne said. I was the founding chair of the transitional movement, which you've seen us support festivals like Festa and Lux City. We've supported Gap Filler where we can. I provided professional services to the Pallet Pavilion. And my wife and I, on a lot of community groups, I support the Christchurch Circus Trust, which has successfully moved into the Arts Centre. And yeah, where we can, we work away in the background making things happen. My architecture company, we have a reputation for adaptive reuse and a long history of seismic strengthening. So I'm very proud that everyone walked out of my buildings in the earthquake. As an architect on the day, it was very tough to know that some of my buildings might have fallen down, especially a school. So yeah, I could quite happily retire now and be happy with the work I've done. Our early days were working for Anthony Goff. We were part of the architecture team that created the Strip, worked on Cashel Mall, and then we quietly worked our way into the fashion district of High Street, a lot of the laneways. We also adapted a lot of commercial buildings to residential, to offices, etc. And all the time we earthquake strengthened. Anthony Goff taught me early on that it's an investment, not an expense, and it seems very obvious now, but that's something we've done for a long time. Our work's been published internationally. I've spoken internationally. In 2006 I was named amongst the 25 most innovative young architects in the world, which we're very proud of, even though we work away quietly in Christchurch. We seem to be known better out of town than we are in town. And a lot of the innovation has sprung our second company, Zeno, which we're a 3D digital company. We're world leaders in 3D Geo, which what Google started. We were in the red zone 10 days after the earthquake and almost lived there for 2 years. We took 3D data of the entire red zone. We also salvaged many businesses and helped them get back on their feet. We were also embedded in the government 100-day blueprint process. We supplied the authoritative 3D data set of where the demolition status was at, and then we worked with Taylor to produce the bells and whistle video that you saw on launch night. We also worked with Sarah on creating firstly the Amazing Places display, showcase, and that later evolved into what's now known as Future Christchurch Showcase and the Travelling Visionarium. We also staff those units, so I spend a lot of hours in them myself. We've spoken to almost 100,000 Christchurch people, and we've offered them an immersive look at their future, and to be honest, we spend more time listening than we do telling. And we see that the level of knowledge in the community was often higher and often more relevant than the experts we were working with. And I've heard that term bandied around by a lot of people, but to me, I see it in my community. I see that expertise, and we've been out there talking to them. Many people have said that my knowledge is second to none on the rebuild, and I could give some detail of the thinness of the blueprint and some of the things that went on there, but I'm still under non-disclosure agreements and code of conduct
when do they come off? I'd love
for another
to know.
2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah, so instead I'm here to talk about my community that I live in, and since the earthquake I've worked in. Denise and I and the kids have been there for 13 years now. We've built a home there, and as I said, we now run our business there. My written submission was very simple. I didn't script those words, but there's a lot that was scripted by Esther and a few locals, but there's a lot of words there that Paul Zanen and I have been banging around for a long time. So I'll quickly read the ones that I think are important to me. But just my background, we were commissioned early by the Paul and the business and landowners, alongside Eastern Vision, Avon Otakaro, to review the council's master plan for New Brighton. We were very concerned early on that the staff didn't have the mandate to look beyond the CBD. So there was a dotted line around the CBD. They could not look at the foreshore. They could not look at the beach, the forest, the river, and all our other natural assets. And they couldn't look at the red zone and the potential of what we could look at there. So we were lucky that we weren't under such rules. So Sam Martin and myself were able to work with Evan, Paul, and a lot of the other, Silver, and a lot of the other community groups and say, what is this holistic picture? And I think Paul Zanen's articulated that better than I could. So I'll leave it with them. But we worked very hard with the Christchurch City staff, and I commend them for the master plan that they put out. There was a lot of sort of red herrings and other distractions at the time, but I must admit there's some good solid work in there in what can be done under the council's land and the council's things. There's a lot of private assumptions that were made, but Mr. Zanen and the community are getting on with that. So in my mind, the outcome of the master plan provides a solid basis that both the public and the private sectors can rebuild on to further enhance what I see as a city asset, which is this key activity centre of Brighton. So very quickly, my submission. Now some of these aren't relevant and the council's already moved on them. I wish to object to the closure of the South Brighton camping ground and the closure of the Rafferty golf course, and I commend the council on the process that's been put in place for the expressions of interest and the direct dealing with Rafferty. I object to the lack of funding for the repair of the Pages Road Bridge, and we've heard a bit of explanation on the red zone things that go there, but I feel that's important. Lack of investment in public spaces in the New Brighton pedestrian mall, and I object to the decreased operational budget for baseline maintenance, and we've had a number of people in the public, some of the habitual users that walk the beach every day, have told us of that decline. And in the LTP, I wish to support the following funding allocations. The funding for the development of the foreshore play space. Again, it seems to be two separate silos in the council working on the master plan and this foreshore, so again, I would like to see that combined. I wish to see further support, or I wish to see the further items including, this is the big one, adequate and appropriate funding to support the Christchurch City Council, New Brighton master plans and the outcomes to date from the community consultation and the CAG groups. That project's ready to go, but $2 million purely for the land isn't going to get us anywhere and it's going to halt things. Funding allocation for the New Brighton, what could be New Zealand Legacy Party project. At this stage it's a hot saltwater pools. I won't comment further on that, but it's been an interesting process and I'll speak very quick to that at the end. Funding allocation for highly used public amenities and services, such as the beachside toilets, the seagull-resistant rubbish bins, etc. I was a junior draftsman on the Brighton Pier for Andrew Barclay, was my first graduate job, and some of my jobs were the circles in the pier, and once we'd got over the tsunami risk, the toilets, which there was no budget for those, so that's why they are concrete cell blocks, but it's quite amazing, I can't remember how many years it is, but they haven't changed. They haven't been damaged too bad. So a wee bit more funding to finish that job would be good. But in general, the building works very, very well. It's world class, and I was proud to do the few little details that I did on it. And then adequate funding for community groups, which I know that and the LTP has tweaked up. But yes, we've been exposed to community groups in Brighton more than ever in my life, and especially when they're working together, they're doing great things. And then a small and appropriate signage for wayfinding in Brighton. And I list out my personal vision for Burwood Pegasus, and more specifically Brighton, as a village in a natural water park. Now, we reviewed the water park scheme that was put forward for Brighton, and my final feeling on that was we didn't need a water park in New Brighton. We wanted New Brighton to be a village in a water park with all its natural assets around it. And I think that thinking has come to the fore, and we're looking at more of an integrated take on that. A safe, family-friendly environment. We are changing. There's a lot of single people leaving the village and families are moving in. There's a demographic change. A place where residents, individuals and families could have their needs met locally. The doctors aren't leaving. The doctors have got busier. The clubs have got busier. New Brighton Rugby Club is the biggest junior subscription in the city and is getting bigger and bigger. Sport and recreation hub for the city. We are a recreational wonderland out where we are. I bike, surf, cycle during my work days. I take a lap around the forest at lunchtime. It's not quite warm enough to surf at the moment, but if I can, I will. A green area with a focus on the environment and environment protection. A venue for international quality events. A place where the city comes to play. They do already. They just don't spend any money because they can do it for free. And a destination at the end of this recreational corridor we have to work on. And I just want to finish, not with my own words. You've heard many passionate submissions from habitual users like Joe Gowans, who walks the beach every day, from 93-year-old Margaret, who's been there her whole life, Mark Gibson, Hamish and Jen, who've got businesses in our village, Kim Money and a group from North Brighton and their promenade, and Pauline, who's just spoken. Firstly, I want to congratulate City Council on this long-term plan process and the transparency. I've been working all week and watching this online, and I watched all the Brighton ones, but then I kept it running and watched everyone else's as well. And it's very interesting across the wards, the very similar problems between wards and them all scrapping within themselves for the money. So I'm wondering if that can be looked at over the city rather than in these silos. And a few words I've taken out of that online stuff over the week. Of course, Paul Zanen on the first day. Can't approach these projects in isolation. And I commend Raf for getting on board with him on Monday and coming out and speaking with some of the people out there. And he's done a lot of work. We've assisted where we can, but there is a strategic plan there of iterative work to get the village. We don't need a white knight. We just need to plug away at it. Some interesting talk from Hagley Ferrymead, who some of you have seen on Facebook. I've been critical of some of the funds they have got. And it was interesting that one of their first things was that we have to see equitable, equal access to funds across wards. Mm-hmm. And that we can't forget communities that had nothing to start with. And that's not from our ward. We heard a great talk from Eleanor Bodger and John Cook, saying that there's been no mass depopulation of our area. We've got busier. Every club's got busier. The doctors haven't gone. The doctors are full. We heard their daughter, Esther, tell us about how the cross-generational families in the area feel. And I love the way that she said New Brighton has one asset that no amount of asset stripping, closures or managed retreat will take away, and that's the ocean. Her father then told us that we're a village beside an ocean and a city beside an ocean and a nation surrounded by ocean. So it's very important to us in the way we live. Yesterday we heard Evan Smith and George from Eastern Vision, and they told us that we need to listen to the community but also to the environment. And there's some real screaming going on out there from our environment we need to listen to. And I loved his idea, especially in Brighton, of an adaptive amphibious city. This idea of transitional, I want to see that move into both our communities and also in this handover period from the people who have been working for to the people I hope I'm soon going to be working for. And our ex-mayor, Gary Moore, is always full of good advice. He said, don't let the red zone be the Judda Bar to the east. And I thought that was very good. And until the government decide what they're going to do and we have this consultation, or whether you guys take it off them so you can do it properly, don't let it be a Judda Bar. And as he said, make the east your capital project and just maintain the west. It's interesting, I go to that side of town quite often. The 2 weeks after the earthquake, I had to go to that side of town to fix a generator we had running most of our neighbourhood. And everyone was showered and smooth and smelt good. I still haven't shaved since the earthquake. And finally, in my own words, I'm interested in what this development authority is going to be, and I thank you, Leanne, for giving us funds for a legacy project. But I'd just like to say that we don't need a legacy project imposed upon us in New Brighton, and that we need New Brighton to become your legacy project. Very simple. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There was, I guess so there's time for a couple of questions, but yeah, just Jimmy and Phil.
Okay, Jason, may I ask you two questions? The first one, because you have the kind of for the New Brighton and East area, the vision, etc. But long-term plan, actually, you are aware, is in relation to the budget. At the moment, the council budget is a limit, even shortfall for the next 10 years, $1.2 billion. Regarding to all those projects, do you have any kind of time frame? Which one has to be, urgent, need to have? Which one is nice to have? We can defer for several years, even outside the 10 years. Yep. Do you have any the priority? Second question is, earlier one of lady is a civil. She particularly recommend maybe partnership between the community and the council, because partnership can save the money and improve conversation, and also is more kind of cost-effective for harness or for energy share, is particular share responsibility. What is your point of view? Read this one.
Thanks, Jimmy. Good questions. Firstly, budgets. I found it really interesting watching the wards all scrap within themselves with their own little budgets, and yet I see similarities. We've all got master plans across the different wards, and I see some disparity in the spending there, but by the sort of polarising of each ward, that doesn't seem to be looked at. But if I look at our ward, my project I want to see go through is the master plan, and I suggest finishing the master plan could be a legacy for the council, because there's been 3 that haven't been finished. The money for it, if I was going to take money, and Evan Smith's going to hate me for this, I would take it out of the Avon Otakaro cycle trail. Now I'm a love cycling, and I've commuted to the city since we've moved to Brighton for 13 years. But Pages Road is the best commuting street in Christchurch. You can see the city the whole way. It's a straight line. I don't want to meander through the red zone to commute. So fix Pages Road. Take that $28 million and do it somewhere else. And also, the best cycle tracks in the world are made by the public. They're joint together of little habitual cycle tracks that people use. And Raf's idea of voluntary crowdsourcing, I can guarantee that cycle tracks will be made by cycle enthusiasts. And a lot of them will just be joining together. So I know cycling is the big easy tick box and share an idea and all these other things, but a lot of the time I feel it's people ticking the box because they want the person in car in front to go cycling. They're not going to do it themselves. And those figures have been proven by Simon Kingham at the university. So although I'm a cyclist, and Evan's going to hate me for this, I would reapportion that cycle money, and again, 10 years, the tracks will form themselves in 10 years through that red zone. And it's not your land yet.
No.
Bottom line. Secondly, the partnership, totally agree, mate. And even the master plan has been a real partnership between your staff and our community groups. And there's been some really solid work done there. I've had to stand up in front of the community and back up your plan. And there's parts of it that I found were valid. And I got it in the face from the local mafia, etc. But those conversations have been had, and I think New Brighton at the moment, you won't find a better community to get into partnership with. Yeah.
Thank you.
Phil.
Thank you, Jason. I'm going to ask you a question similar to what I asked Evan Smith yesterday, I think it was. And if we take into account changes, you referred to the ocean, changes not only with the ocean, but in terms of our land too and their environment, and future sea level change, and also increased storms and possibility of tsunamis. How should we as a council get that balance right for investment in things like flood protection along the coast. With, all right, currently, what we should do now, how can we have that sort of aligned with our long-term strategy around dealing with those environmental changes that are referred to?
It's interesting you mentioned Evan. I quoted before, he referred to an amphibious city. And coming from the transitional movement, I think we need those sort of, rather than a fixed Dutch type seawall type thing, floods are known. We know a flood's coming. And if, there's places overseas, half the world's under sea level, most of the cities. Build so that we can pick up and move, or build so that we can repair. Like we're now doing post-earthquake, we're building our houses so that they can be repaired. Floods are easy. Get everything out of the water, let it come in, let it go out, clean it up and get back in. All your ground floors could be, concrete so that they can flood and flow out again. There's a mark, we want to open a cafe in Brighton that has the sea level mark on and say, don't leave children or cell phones below this height in case of a flood. We know floods are coming. Earthquakes we don't, floods we do. So let's be agile. Let's have this sort of transitional amphibious city that we can move in the next 50, 100 years when we know what the environment's going to do. But, look at the dunes. They rise with the sea level, and that's happening now. The dunes have been getting bigger. The higher the sea level gets, the more sand will be dumped out of the Waimak on the beaches, and that's been proven by ECAN, proven by the local guys who know that area. They've seen the dunes grow. Let's be flexible and see what the environment teaches us.
Thank you very much. And I just love the way you ended your submission. Let's make New Brighton the legacy project for the city.
There's your challenge, Leanne.
Yep. We're up for it. Thank you very, very much.